Naomi, why are you this heartless and evil? You said you fetched some firewoods from the farm, so where is it? Naomi's stepmom asked, her voice filled with anger. Stepmom, I am so sorry, please forgive me, it's a long story, she pleaded. Before she could finish, 2 dirty slaps landed on her face. It's Chidubem, she stammered, trying to explain. But Naomi's stepmom didn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your silly stories, she yelled angrily at me. Chidubem almost raped me in the farm, that's why I couldn't pack up firewood from the farm, she said, trying to prove it was true, but just then, Chidubem appeared out of nowhere and interrupted us. Mommy, you know I can never do that, he said, trying to defend himself. But that's the truth. Chidubem tried to rape me, and I had to hit him on the head with a stone to escape, she said, her voice shaking with fear. Naomi's stepmom looked at her with disgust. Really? Naomi, so this is what you have been doing, sneaking around with boys, including today. You're a disgrace, Naomi. Chidubem jumped in, trying to cover his tracks. Mommy, I even saw her today with a boy, just because I said I would tell you, this witch here had the guts to hit me with a stone. Her stepmom looked at her angrily, filled with anger. Naomi, you know what? Just leave my presence this minute, now. Naomi humbled herself and went inside to her room, feeling happy that she had escaped further punishment, but little did she know that her stepmom and her son were up to something. As she lay on her bed, she couldn't stop thinking about Chidubem's attack and her stepmom's cruelty. Why was my life so miserable? Why did my stepmom hate me so much? Tears streamed down Naomi's face as she thought about her situation. She felt so alone and helpless. Just then, she heard a knock on the door. It was Chinaza, her half-sister. Naomi, what's wrong? She asked, seeing my tears. I told her everything about Chidubem's attack and my stepmom's cruelty. Chinaza listened, her eyes filled with compassion. Naomi, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was this bad. They hugged each other, both of them crying. Why is our mom so cruel to you? Chinaza asked. She shook her head. I don't know. I feel like I'm all alone in this world. Chinaza held her tight. You're not alone, Naomi. I'm here for you. But despite Chinaza's kindness, she couldn't shake off the feeling of sadness and fear. The evening arrived quietly. Naomi did everything before going to bed, but she never knew something terrible would happen. As she was sleeping, something hit her head, but she thought it was just a dream, so she continued sleeping. Immediately she lay her head back, someone began flogging her. She was so confused. She tried defending herself, trying to stand up and run, but someone pressed her to the bed. Naomi's mind quickly flashed back that it was her stepmom. Stepmom, please, please stop. Don't kill me, please, she cried in pains. She begged and begged, but the cane kept coming, touching her from her head to her toe. Chidubem was laughing immediately, enjoying the sight of Naomi being beaten. Naomi, by the time I am done with you this night, you won't wait for anybody to tell you to run away from this house, her stepmom said, still flogging her. When she finished flogging Naomi, she tore the cloth she was wearing into pieces, making her naked. Chidubem, get hold of her, let's dump her in the road, she said. Naomi was so weak, she couldn't talk, shout, nor move. She was just as lifeless as a dead livestock. Before they threw her along the roadside, Naomi's stepmom carried a razor blade, giving her a small mark on her hands and buttocks. Naomi cried, but yet nobody could come to her refuge. As she lay there, she felt like her life was slipping away. Why was my stepmom so cruel to me? Why did she hate me so much? Naomi thought about her dad, and how he would feel if he knew what was happening to her. She thought about Chinaza, and how she would feel if she knew what was happening to her. But most of all, Naomi thought about her life, and how it had become a living hell. She felt so alone, so helpless. Tears streamed down her face, pouring like rain. I wished I could die, just to escape the pain and suffering. She said to herself, Lord God, please take away my life. I am tired of this life, she cried. Just then, she saw a woman coming towards her, mourning some words. Who did this to you? Whoever might have done this is so heartless, she said, feeling sorry for her. She tried talking, but she couldn't. She had already bled seriously, leading to her weakness. She immediately helped her by boarding a car to carry her to the hospital with her, but before then, she covered her body with a wrapper. They got to the hospital and was taken to the treatment hall. The doctor quickly fixed her right hand in a drip, cleaning the wounds on her body with a cotton wool. Ma, she will get better soon, please, the doctor said. But what really happened? Sir, I don't really know what happened, the woman replied. I saw her in the road weeping, so I decided to help her. I pray nothing happens to her. The doctor nodded and went back to his office. While in the bed, Naomi couldn't breathe properly. Her body system changed. Her eyes dozed off. Maybe this is the end of her staying in this earth, she thought. Please, God, take my life. Just use this opportunity to take my life, Naomi screamed out. My dear, please come down. Don't cry, okay? Please, you're making me cry. Please stop, the woman said, holding her in her left hand. Naomi felt a sense of comfort in her presence, but she couldn't stop crying. The woman held her tight, trying to comfort her. Don't cry, my dear, she said. You will get better soon. The torture was still in her, she couldn't stop crying. She cried till there was no tears left in her eyes, so she dozed up. The next morning, she realized she was no longer in the treatment ward anymore. Baby girl, you're awake. You're going to get well soon, okay? Naomi couldn't smile, nor talk properly, because the pains were still there. After 2 more days, she recovered completely. The woman who took her to the hospital billed and settled all her bills. She took her to her house and then introduced herself to her. I am Mrs. Chiamaka, you're welcome to my abode, she said. Can I know you? My name is Naomi, I replied. Can you really tell me what exactly happened? She asked. Yes, Ma, it's a long story, she said. My mother left me after 7 months of birth. My dad's second wife, Mrs. Rose, hasn't been a fair person to me ever since my dad married her. She was actually the one who did this to me, including her son too. I never committed any offense, she just flogged me because I said the truth to her about her son, who wanted to take advantage of me in the farm. This your stepmom is indeed cruel and heartless, Mrs. Chiamaka exclaimed. I am so sorry, baby girl, everything will be fine, okay? She smiled at her, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. I lost my husband and my only daughter 4 years ago due to a very terrible car accident. That's why I am a widow at this age, she said, tears streaming down her face. When I saw you that night, I remembered my daughter, Annabelle. Naomi was so short of words. So sorry, Ma, for your loss, but it's really hurt, I said, sympathizing with her. After their discussion, she took Naomi to her room, gave her food, and then clothes to wear. So, after everything, I slept off. She felt a sense of peace in Mrs. Chiamaka's house. She felt loved and cared for. The next morning, she got Naomi clothes and some pairs of shoes. She was so happy, but then she told her she will be taking her to her home. Ma, I really appreciate all you have done for me. But the truth is I don't want to go back to that demon's house, she said, tears streaming down her face. Naomi, I know how you feel, I know what it is to stay with a wicked and cruel person, but the truth is, living here with me is not advisable, Mrs. Chiamaka said, holding my hands. Ma, please, I would love to stay with you here, please. You have done enough for me. I don't want to go back to that house, I begged. Naomi, for my sake, please, I will be taking you to your stepmom's house, Mrs. Chiamaka said, her eyes filled with sincerity. She looked at her and saw the sincerity in her eyes. She doubted, she finally agreed. I will go, Mrs. Chiamaka, I said, pretending to smile. So she did everything, and then, they began the journey to the village. They arrived at her house. Is anybody in? Mrs. Chiamaka asked. Yes, please come in, a voice said from inside the house. Sister Naomi, where have you been? Chinaza, her stepmom's daughter, said, running inside the house, surprised. Good day, Ma. I am Mrs. Chiamaka, and this is your daughter, Naomi. You are highly welcome here. What should we offer you? Do you want a chilled soft drink? My stepmom asked. I am okay, Mrs. Rose. Please, I would love to have a very important conversation with you, Mrs. Chiamaka said. Go on. I am listening, my stepmom replied. Ma, the way you are treating this little girl, Naomi, is not good. Few days ago, I saw her helpless in the corner of the road, while coming back from work. She was so weak. She bled so badly that if not for God Almighty, she would have been dead by now. What has she really done? Mrs. Chiamaka asked, her voice filled with concern. My stepmom was shocked on hearing her questions. She pretended to smile. You know, all these children of nowadays are so disobedient and disrespectful. She knows what she did. Can't you ask her yourself? My stepmom questioned. Ma, I'm here for your daughter's sake. Please treat this girl in a very good way, please, Mrs. Chiamaka begged. Anyway, Naomi, take this 20,000 naira. It's for you. Mrs. Chiamaka said, handing Naomi the money. Ma, this is for you too. I will be on my way now, Mrs. Chiamaka said, turning to her stepmom. All this for me and my daughter. My God will continue to bless you for me. Amen, Ma. Naomi, baby, come and give me a hug, my stepmom said, pretending to be happy. She immediately ran and hugged Mrs. Chiamaka, with tears falling from her eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Chiamaka. I will always remember you. Bye, Mrs. Chiamaka said, entering her car. She was in tears, seeing her leave. So this is how I won't see this kind of caring lady again, she cried, but she knew a new problem awaits her. So as she went into her room, she immediately banged in. So finally you're back, right? You even have the right to tell her everything that's going on in this house. Just look at you from head to toe, you look much like a beast. The devil. Just as Naomi was about responding to her, she flung the money from her hands. Where are those unwanted things she bought for you? Oh, they are here already. So all this for you. You can't be wearing all this seductive thing under this roof. I will burn them, including this money she gave to the both of us, she said, looking at me angrily. But stepmom, with all due respect, what do you take me for? You can go and burn them off, but the truth is, my God never sleeps. She was so disappointed and annoyed, Naomi thought, as she took the things from her. As usual, she thought Naomi will cry, but she was shocked seeing her strong. She immediately left her room, because she didn't get what she wanted from her. Naomi watched her from the window in her room, burning the goodies Mrs. Chiamaka bought for me. She got annoyed and angrily went outside, straight to where she was squatting. Mrs. Rose, or whatever you call yourself, be ready for me, including that your dilapidated son of a thing, the battle line has just been drawn, and be ready that the fire in it is gonna burn you into ashes, she said with boldness in her. Naomi felt a sense of courage she had never felt before. She was tired of being treated like a slave in her own home. Her stepmom looked at her, shocked, but Naomi could see the anger burning in her eyes. You dare talk to me like that, you ungrateful child, she exclaimed. But Naomi stood her ground. I am not afraid of you. I am not afraid of your son. We will see who will come out victorious in the end." Her stepmom laughed. "You think you can defeat me? I have been doing this for years, even before I got married to your dad, and no one has ever dared to challenge me." So at that very moment, Naomi wasn't afraid. She was so much ready to face whatever came her way. Her stepmom immediately ordered her to go inside and lay down naked and wait for her in her room. But perhaps she sent her 2 children away. Immediately, Naomi got into the house. She brought out a cane, locked the door, and then ordered Naomi to lie down naked. "Naomi, take off your clothes and lay down there," she said, going to the kitchen. On coming out, she brought out the blended pepper she kept for cooking soup. She first of all brought out the cane and started flogging her. At the process, Naomi got up, took the cane from her, and she began flogging her. "Somebody, please help me. Naomi wants to kill me," she said, crying and shouting. Despite all her crying and shouting, she kept on flogging her. Their neighbors, who were outside, were telling Naomi to stop, but she didn't mind. She flogged and flogged her till she could no longer shout again. So she took the blended pepper and threw it at her face. "Mrs. Rose, you will now feel the pain of what I'm passing through in this your evil house," Naomi said. "Naomi, please forgive me. Please don't leave me like this," her stepmom pleaded. "Mommy or auntie, I can't help you. You can die and go to hell, I don't care," Naomi's replied to her. She immediately carried all her belongings and ran out from the house through their backyard. But before then, Naomi wrote a letter on the table so that her dad can read it when he comes back home. Naomi was running without looking back. She ran as fast as her 2 left legs could carry her. As she was running as fast as she could, she luckily saw a man driving towards her direction. "Hey, little girl, please stop, stop," he ordered. "Sorry, sir, please, I don't want to die. I have to run as fast as I could before I got caught here," Naomi said, breathing heavily. "You don't have to be afraid, little girl. I am Mr. Godfrey by name, and you?" She was so afraid to tell him her name. She thought he was a ritualist with the way he looked. But after much thought, she told him her name, but still scared. "Sir, my name is Naomi. I am the only child of my parents." "Ooh, now I see. Where are you going to with all these clothes?" he asked again. "Sir, it's a long story to tell, but for now, I need to be running, please." "Thanks for your help." "God bless you for your help," she said, carrying her bag, and then began to continue her journey without knowing where she was heading to. "My dear, where are you going to? Please come in, I can take you home." "Sir, I said thanks, please," she pleaded. "I can't let you just go." "Where exactly are you going to? Speak up, please, I may be of help to you." "My stepmom wants to kill me, she was even flogging me before I ran out from the house. I don't really know where I'm going to, but I know God will see me through," Naomi said, crying. "Little girl, stop crying. It's okay, okay. Don't worry, just come with me, I will take you to my house, please." She pleaded again for the 3rd time. At this time, she didn't know what to do. She stood up there, and immediately 2 thoughts came into her mind. "Naomi, don't you think this man is the man God has obtained to help you? Why not follow him? Naomi, if you follow this man, he may kill you along the way and use you for ritual," said the other. "If he wants to kill me, let him kill me. And if truly he wants to help me, then let God have his own way in my life," she concluded, and immediately got into his car, and they both began the journey. It took them 4 to 5 hours to get to his house. They arrived at his house, and I went in and sat down in one of his chairs in the parlor. "Darling, how are you doing?" "I'm fine, dear." "Who's this young and beautiful girl here?" asked his wife. "Dear, this is Naomi, she's from the village. When I was returning back home, I saw her. She was in need of help, so I decided to help her. I am Deborah by name, and I am his wife. So, young girl, what happened to you? Why are you looking so rough like this? Asked Mrs. Deborah. Ma, I'm Naomi by name. I live with my dad and my stepmom in a very small village. My stepmom, she's very wicked. She tried killing me today. What happened to your biological mother? My mom left me at the age of 7 months, and ever since then, till I grew up to this extent, I have been suffering. My stepmom will use me to do house chores, and after all the chores has been done, she will refuse to give me food to eat, she said crying. No, things are not done that way. Indeed, you have suffered enough. Why will she make you go through all this pain? Even me, as a mother, I can't do such a thing to someone else's child. Oh God, what a life! Mrs. Deborah said, with drops of tears running down her cheek. Ma, sir, please help me, please, I pleaded. We both have heard your story, and we are going to help you with your studies and any other thing at all. We are going to do it for you. You are now our daughter, they both said. Sir, thank you, my God will continue to bless you for me. Oh. Due to the excitement on Naomi's face, she couldn't stop crying. Naomi, it's okay, don't worry about anything, dear. You won't regret living with us. So quickly, go to the bathroom, take your bath, and then come, let's take you to the boutique to get you some new clothes. Naomi hurriedly went to the bathroom and took my bath. After dressing up, they both went to the boutique. He bought all types of clothes for her, pairs of shoes. So after 1 week, she started going to school. She started schooling at Mr. Godfrey's house, and although it wasn't easy, she was determined to succeed. Every morning, she wakes up early, clean the house, and then head to school. Living with Mr. Godfrey and his wife was a dream come true. They treated her like their own daughter, showed her love and care. For the first time in her life, she experienced true peace. Naomi's studies were her top priority. She stays up late, reading and studying, determined to pass her final year exams with flying colors. The day arrived, the exam results were out. Naomi couldn't believe her eyes, she was the overall best student in the school. Mr. Godfrey beamed with pride. Naomi, indeed you made us proud. Congratulations! Tears of joy streamed down Naomi's face. Sir, thank you for your support. Where would I have been without you? Mrs. Godfrey smiled warmly. Naomi, you don't have to cry again. God has a plan for you. After completing her secondary education, Mr. and Mrs. Godfrey sponsored Naomi's university education. She studied law, and it wasn't easy, but she persevered. Returning to Mr. Godfrey's house, they barely recognized me. Is anybody in? Mummy, Daddy, I'm back. Mr. Godfrey's eyes widened in shock. Jesus, Naomi, is this you? Oh my goodness, you've grown so big. They celebrated her return with a toast of wine. Mr. Godfrey said, Naomi, you are welcome back home. You've made us proud. She smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. Daddy, I couldn't have done it without you and Mommy. Mr. Godfrey's voice cracked with emotion. Naomi, it's time to reunite with your parents. She hesitated, memories of her stepmom's cruelty flooding back. Daddy, no. How can I face her after all she did to me? Mr. Godfrey's gentle tone calmed her. Naomi, don't pay evil with evil. Your stepmom will regret her actions when she sees how far you've come. The next morning, they set out for the village. It was a long ride. They arrived at her village. She felt a mix of emotions. They searched for her stepmom's house, and finally, a villager directed them. Naomi's heart pounded as they approached. Hello, madam. Are you Mrs. Rose, wife of Mr. Okoro? She asked, my voice trembling. She looked up, surprised. Yes, I am. She took a deep breath. Mrs. Rose, do you recall that girl you flogged and chased away 7 years ago? Tears streamed down her face. Yes, I remember. I am that girl, she said, her voice firm. Naomi's stepmom collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. Naomi, please forgive me. Her dad joined in, pleading for forgiveness. Naomi, my daughter, forgive us. But stepmom, where's Chinaza? I lost her the very day you left, Mrs. Rose said, crying. She was short of words, but she have nothing to do because the deal has been done already. She forgave them, and we shared a tearful reunion. Mr. Godfrey's words echoed in my mind, treat children kindly, regardless of whether they're yours or not. As they prepared to leave, Mr. Godfrey handed me a check. Naomi, take this 1 million naira, it's yours. She handed them a check of 2 million naira. Sir, Ma, take care of yourselves. As Mr. Godfrey and his wife drove away, she hugged them tightly. You'll forever be my parents. She chose to forgive, not because she was weak but because she knew that someday, everything would be fine. Today, she is a successful lawyer, married with 3 beautiful kids. Her father owns a bakery, and her stepmom is a fashion designer. Forgiveness freed me from the chains of bitterness.